Hey everyone, my name is Perry, and welcome back to the Cassette Phase. So I hope that you're all having a good week so far. We're busy packing and getting everything ready to go out of town. We're going to be in San Diego next week for my daughter's dance competition. And we're not going to have a ton of time to do any sightseeing or really touristy stuff. We'll have a little bit of time, and I'll be sure to get some footage if I find anything nostalgic that I think you guys might be interested in. So a little bit different type of video today, but you guys know that I enjoy all things retro, all things vintage, and anything and everything nostalgic. Well, included in all of that are the things that I wear. You know, whether that's a retro digital Casio watch or a baseball cap with a retro team logo on it. And you're probably thinking, man, don't you usually just wear a solid colored t-shirt or a hoodie along with some shorts or some sweatpants? And yes, you're right. But I also like to mix in some fun, nostalgic graphic t-shirts every once in a while too. But the reason that I typically stick to, solid colored, basic, straightforward, t-shirts and hoodies and things like that, is because I like to wear fun, retro sneakers. And I don't know, I just feel like sometimes if your sneakers or your shoes make a little bit of a statement, it's okay that the rest of the clothes that you're wearing might be a little bit more understated. And when I do throw on something like a Mega Man t-shirt or a Herculoids t-shirt, I tend to pair that stuff with some more basic shoes, but still fun and retro, like an old pair of classic Reebok Club C's or an all-white pair of Nike Air Max 90s. Well, that brings us to the main topic of today's video. And it's something that we've talked about before on the channel in what was surprisingly one of the most viewed videos on my entire channel, and that's retro sneakers. So I'm going to quickly show you all a couple of my most recent retro sneaker pickups, shoes that I've never shown before on the channel. And then, as a first time ever here on the Cassette Phase, a sneaker unboxing. For a pair that I just got in yesterday that I'm really, really excited about. I can't wait to open those up and see what they look like. And of course, we're going to do our cassette of the day, as always. And I'll be sure to mix in some memories and some nostalgia and some storytelling so that it's not just a sneaker review today. Sound like fun to you? Come hang out. Okay everyone, welcome back to the Ottoman, and welcome to another great day here in the den, where today I've got keeping me company over on the TV, some dinosaurs. Who remembers that ridiculous old sitcom? That's definitely a fun one. And before we start talking more about sneakers and shoes, we're going to do our cassette of the day. And you're probably thinking, okay, this is probably going to fit within a theme, and I considered doing that. I thought about doing like one of the Michael Jordan highlight tapes on VHS or I don't know, a clamshell copy of The Air Up There or something along those lines, but I kind of decided against it. We've got a lot of people who watch this channel who aren't the biggest fan of sports and sneakers, and I don't want to bore those guys to death here with this video today, so I want to try to include some stuff that's more aligned with what we typically talk about here on the Cassette Phase. So for that reason, we're sticking with a VHS tape. It's not a rare one. It's a movie that you've all heard about and you've all seen. It's a 1984 classic, supernatural comedy. One of the best 80s movies, I think, probably in the top 10. And of course, we have to talk about Ghostbusters. Now, here's a question for you. Did you see the movie first, or did you see the Saturday morning cartoon first? And I know based on various ages of the people who watch this channel, that's probably going to vary depending on your, where you fell on the timeline. Now, supposedly for me, this was, I think, one of the very first movies I ever saw in the theater. If I remember this correctly, I could be mixing this up with something else in my head, but my parents saw it when I was really, really little, and I probably didn't understand a thing about it, but apparently I was there. But I don't have any memory of that. I actually remembered the Saturday morning cartoon first, and then saw the movie, after that. Probably right around the same time. I mean, you couldn't escape this movie. It was on at everybody's house. This was like your great sleepover movie if you're hanging out with your friends and you want to put a tape on. This was a popular choice, and for good reason. You know, it's funny, action-packed, got some great characters, some great actors, iconic theme music, very quotable, and just kind of one of those really, really iconic movies from the 80s. You know, all 80s kids can relate and unite around this film, I feel like. You know, so I know I'm not talking about anything revolutionary or breaking any barriers down by talking about Ghostbusters on my channel. It's kind of on the nose, but I looked on my shelf and I realized I don't think I've done this one yet on the cassette of the day, and I feel like I just felt like it today. You know, I love the look of this tape. Like, this is just like your quintessential looking, you know, 80s VHS tape. I love how it's worn along the edges. I love how the colors match the logo. I'm always happy anytime I get one of these spines, you know, on the side. I think these always look cool on the shelf. Depending on the movie, of course. Some of them it doesn't make quite as much sense, but you could display it this way if you wanted to match your Ghostbusters 2 tape a little bit better if you're into that on the shelf, you know, making things look cohesive. But I always put it this way out. I just think it's classic looking. So yeah, nothing new by talking about the Ghostbusters, but like I said, I wanted to break up a little bit of the sneaker talk today, and give you guys something else to look at for a couple minutes. So that's where we landed with today's cassette of the day. So I want to start off by going back over to the Ottoman and showing you a couple of my most recent retro sneaker pickups, and show you some shoes that I've been wearing a lot so far this summer. And then we'll come back over to the couch for a little history, a little story time, and some memories about today's main attraction, the sneakers that I have here in this box. So let's go ahead and head back on over to the Ottoman for a quick little sneaker show and tell. All right, welcome back to the Ottoman. Let's talk about a couple of pairs of retro sneakers. And let me just quickly preface this by saying, if you made your way to my little corner of YouTube from, you know, some of the bigger sneakerhead and sneaker related content type channels, this is not that. You know, I'm a very small 80s and 90s nostalgia and pop culture type of channel. I just so happen to also like nostalgia associated with my shoes and my sneakers. So we're not going to go into depth about, you know, the hype behind any of these, because there really is no hype around these, or how hard they were to get, or resale value, or anything like that. We're just talking about a couple of pairs of shoes that I like to wear that take me back to my childhood. So that being said, let's get started. So the first one I want to show you today is a shoe that I've been wearing a lot this summer. I think the colors are great for this particular time of year, and it's one of my favorite sneakers of all time. In fact, if you made me pick my number one shoe of all time, it would probably be the Air Max 90. And that might seem a little bit boring, but it's just right in the perfect wheelhouse for me. You know, I was 9, 10 years old when it came out. The colors were bright and eye-catching, and real sporty and athletic looking at the time. And I never had these as a kid, but I sure love getting them now as an adult. They're some of my favorite shoes to wear, and that's what we've got here. Now they're calling this color the, unofficially, they call this the Dunkin' Donuts colorway. I don't think that's the official name of the color for this one, but you can see why they would call that, because it's a pretty simple black and gray and white shoe, but it has hits of bright orange and hot pink. So it makes sense. Yeah, I love these things. I have Air Max 90s in solid white and like some, you know, just some gray ones that are really neutral and easy to wear with a lot of things. But sometimes, especially in the summertime, I like to have something with some bright color on it, as you'll see in the shoes that we unboxed today as well. Kind of the same vibe going there. But yeah, really happy with these. Comfortable, a lot of fun to wear. Let's move on to the next one. So for these next ones, these are not the bright colors. These are not the flashy neon hits or anything like that. These are about as neutral and classic as it gets. They're just black and white, but it's another classic Nike shoe that I just love wearing. Never had them as a kid, but I've read enough things and watched enough videos to understand its significance. And for a shoe from 1987, it's actually pretty comfortable, especially as you break them in. And here we've got the Nike Air Trainer 1. Looks pretty plain and boring, right? But this was, John McEnroe would wear these, if you're familiar with tennis at all. I think he was known for wearing these, but more famously, these were the Bo Jackson cross trainers, right? Remember the old Bo knows, Bo knows football, Bo knows basketball, Bo knows baseball. That whole ad campaign from Nike back in the 80s, I'm pretty sure it started with this shoe. And the idea was kind of that you could keep the same sneakers on your feet no matter what sports you were playing. And I think that's pretty cool. Would you play sports in these nowadays with today's sneaker technology? Probably not, but I can tell you right now, when I was a kid, these would have been perfect for playing basketball or playing kickball or playing soccer or anything. I would have loved to have worn these. And this reissue, surprisingly, is really good quality. Nike's been upping their game a lot lately with the quality of materials that they're using on some of these. Like you can see, the leather quality on this is actually pretty decent. Probably closer to what you would have gotten back in 1987 when these first came out. And yeah, these are a little bit beat up because I've been wearing them a lot this summer. They go with everything, and they're comfortable. But that top-down view, does that not just take you back? Like I can just see myself, sitting at the bus stop, or sitting on the playground, or sitting on the PE bleachers, looking down at that perforated toe box on my feet. Yeah, I don't know. Just a classic. It's my first pair of Nike Trainer 1s, but it won't be my last. They've got some other great colors of this that look to be just about as good a quality, if not even a little bit better, that I'll probably be checking out down the road. But for right now, for this summertime, these are getting a lot of wear. So happy to have them. All right. So today I want to take you back to a time that we revisit a ton here on the Cassette Phase, a time full of neon and acid-washed jeans, and arcades and boomboxes, and a time when a sport like tennis wasn't just about polite clapping and cucumber sandwiches. It was loud, it was rebellious, and nothing quite captured that spirit like the Nike Air Tech Challenge 2. So let's set the stage for a minute. It's 1989, and the world is watching a young American tennis star who didn't seem to get the memo that tennis was supposed to be a gentleman's game. And that's Andre Agassi, who burst onto the scene like a rock star with his wild mullet and his ripped denim shorts and his I don't care attitude. Well, what was on his feet at the time but the Nike Air Tech Challenge 2, a sneaker that completely matched his personality. Now, the Air Tech Challenge 2 wasn't just another tennis shoe. It was designed by the legendary Tinker Hatfield, who also brought us such great shoes like the Air Jordan 3 and the Nike Air Max 1. No, this sneaker was kind of a work of art. With its splatter paint graphics and its vibrant colors, it looked like no other tennis shoe that came before it. And let's be honest, the tennis shoes before this looked like what your accountant would wear on Casual Friday. But it wasn't all about the looks. It packed all of Nike's latest tech at the time, with the Nike Air cushioning and a really lightweight upper, and a heel counter for stability for lunging at those hard-to-reach volleys. Or maybe Andre Agassi was lunging for the volleys. We were just trying not to trip over our shoelaces while we were trying to copy him in our driveways. And beyond the tech and the design, it kind of sparked a culture shift. Suddenly tennis wasn't just for the country clubs. This shoe kind of made tennis feel cool. And Agassi, with that rebel image, was winning on the court, but he was also winning over a generation of kids who previously had no interest in tennis whatsoever, but now wanted to wear what he was wearing. And who could blame them, really? With that hot lava colorway, that shoe didn't whisper, it screamed. I mean, you could see those things from across the court, or from across the food court. And the AirTech Challenge 2 has some staying power. You know, Nike continues to reissue the shoe. It's been a few times now over the decades, because as we know really well around here, nostalgia sells. And whenever you see a pair on someone's feet, you can't help but feel a little bit of 80s or 90s nostalgia. You know, it's like rediscovering one of your old mixtapes or suddenly finding your old Game Boy. So as we unbox this pair and you think to yourself, wow, am I really watching a YouTube video about a pair of shoes? Just remember, it's not just a shoe. It's a piece of history. And it's a reminder that sometimes the best way to change the game is to break the rules. And last, but certainly not least, let's get on to, I guess, the quote-unquote main event of today's video. And that's going to be unboxing my first ever pair of Nike AirTech Challenge 2s. Now, just a quick little backstory on these. The hot lava color that came out last year, I missed out on those. And I'm going to put a picture in to show you guys what I'm talking about. But those are the ones that I remember most vividly from my childhood. Those are the ones that I remember, you know, Andre Agassi wearing on the tennis court. Unfortunately, they were like a limited release. They sold out really quickly, and now you have to pay, you know, for my size, about $400 to get a pair, and I just kind of refuse to do that. I just think that Nike should just make more. And maybe that's what they did on this one, because this one is called the Stone Blue colorway, and I think this was also an original colorway, also very bright and vivid and clearly represents the late 80s and early 90s. So I'm excited to see what these look like in hand. And we'll talk about them more once we get them opened up. All right, I've got them out of the box. Well, the shipper box. Now they're just in the shoe box. So let's take a quick look at that, make sure they got my size right. Yep, just your classic orange Nike sportswear box with the gray stripes on the bottom. Pretty sure we all got a shoe out of a box like that at some point in our lives. Yeah, I feel kind of like a kid on Christmas, because it's still exciting to me to get a new pair of sneakers. I don't know about you guys, but when I was a kid, usually you got one pair of athletic sneakers per year. You know, it was usually right before school started. You know, so your parents would take you to the mall or the Athlete's Foot or the Foot Locker or the Finish Line or whatever the case may be, and you would look through all the awesome looking shoes on the wall, and usually, you know, you had a price limit, so you weren't always able to get the latest and greatest thing, but usually you found something cool, and there was nothing like getting them home, getting them out of the box, and lacing them up. So it's kind of the feeling I've got going right now. So let's check this out. Should we do like an ASMR thing? All right, and you never quite know how these re-releases are gonna look and feel once you get them in hand, but I can already tell they did a good job on these. Yep, I can already tell by the way they feel. Yeah, these are nice. All right, let me set these down, put the box to the side, and come right back to you. Yeah, and right off the bat, something as simple as this little hang tag. That is just such a nice touch. You know, you don't see that very much anymore, so I'm glad they included that. That is a really nice nostalgic retro touch there. Yeah, and the lighting isn't perfect here in the den today. I'm trying to get as much light as I can on here, but I don't know if it's going to come across. But these are really, really vibrant. Like this orange, it's like a neon orange. It's like a bright neon tangerine. And then the blue is almost like a dark teal. Like, it reminds me a little bit of like a Seattle Mariners color, or maybe even like the Seahawks. It reminds me of their old jerseys a little bit. Yeah, just awesome stuff. And like I said, I am not a sneaker reviewer or a sneaker content creator. If you guys like that kind of stuff, though, I highly recommend A couple of my favorite channels. Eddie Wynn, Eddie Wynn Kicks. He's been doing it for over a decade, and I think he's probably the best doing it currently. I also like the Wear Testers YouTube channel with Nightwing, and then Ballin' on a Budget. Our guy out in Florida who goes to all the Nike outlets and shows you the good deals and the bargains. But no, I'm not any of those guys. I'm just an 80s and 90s nostalgia fan who likes to wear things that represent that era. So let's take a close look anyway. So you've got these the plastic tabs here, almost more like a rubber. And I thought that these were going to be gray, but in person they're almost more like a sky blue, which is awesome. And of course you've got that bright orange swoosh that I was telling you about. And then you've got the splatter paint patterns here. You've got it right there and right there. Now, are these as cool looking as the Hot Lava? I don't think so, but they're close, and I think that they're more neutral. And I know you're not going for neutral when you're buying a pair of AirTech Challenge 2. You want something a little bit flashy, but I could actually see myself wearing these with quite a bit of stuff and it not looking out of place, And that's probably a little bit harder to pull off with, something like the Hot Lavas. You got a little bit slight aging on the midsole here, which I don't mind that as a touch. I think it looks cool. It makes them look closer to a true vintage pair of sneakers. I think the laces might have a slight aging on them to match that, or it's really hard to tell looking through the camera here, but I like when the laces are this color as well, like a sail ivory off-white color. Just gives them a little bit more of that aged look. And there's the top-down view, always important. That's how you're going to see them most of the time while you're wearing them. So if you want to enjoy your sneakers and wear them out and about like I do, the top-down view matters. And I don't even know, is this the lateral side or is this the medial side? I don't know. It's one or the other. But it's the same on both. You got the Nike Air branding on the back. Let's see, the tongue feels pretty plush. Some cool branding on it there. Yeah, and with the Nike Air cushioning system in there, these are probably going to be fairly comfortable. I don't expect them to fit like, or be comfortable like some of the modern sneakers I wear. Like if I'm really wanting something super comfortable, I'll wear like a pair of like Hoka's or, some Sauconys or something like that. But, I don't need that all the time. This is fine for me most days. Unless I'm going to be walking around a theme park or something, I'm usually good in a retro pair of sneakers. Because it's not like you're wearing loafers or dress shoes, or flip-flops or something. You're still wearing sneakers, so there's going to be some comfort there usually. And I think these will be pretty good. I think these will be, hopefully on par with the Trainer 1s or the Air Max 90s, and a little bit more comfortable than like a Jordan 1. But we will find out, because I can tell you right now, I'm going to lace these up and wear these a lot this summer. So there they are. And there we are. So I know that we tried something a little bit different here on the channel today, but I had a lot of fun making this one, and I hope that maybe it helped spark a memory or two for you along the way. And if it did, consider subscribing. Also, don't forget to like the video, but only if you actually liked the video. But for now, and as always, relax, enjoy life, and be kind. We'll see you in the next one.